Good morning, you guys. Um, I thought it was important to do. I don't feel as well. I had a head cold ever since I made my last video on Thursday, but at least it's not like the flu or anything. So I'm not going to complain. I'm getting better and I'm getting rest. And ideally, I try to like fast on January 31st of all years. I've experienced some really supernatural things on January 31st after fast, trying to fast that day, specifically before the new year. I know Minister Paul's calling a fast. I don't know if I can fast partially. But you know, you guys, last January 31st is when I had the beginning of what I used to, the beginning of multiple visions a day. And they've kind of weaned off here in the last couple months. But January 31st of last year's, no, December 31st, excuse me, you guys, was when I began to have a lot of visions. Like they went from once a week or something to, once a week or twice a week or three times a week to like 4 and 5 a day, or three or four. So, in hindsight, this has been a really active year, but it's just prepping us to go home, and I think it's prepping us for war, which is what I want to talk about. Last night, I had a dream, and in the dream, there was a lady at the desk, at this desk, and it was like she was the head of some type of personnel, and it seemed like a one of those office desks that you like you go into the doctor's office and they have this high desk. But to her, she was emphasizing that it in this particular facility, it was important for them to be using all ex-war personnel. And I was kind of getting the feeling that it was like World War II personnel. It was important for them to use specifically like war vets to kind of like honor them and to kind of like make sure that things were getting done right and to their to their standards. And I think I was kind of agreeing with her, or I think I kind of respected the fact that she wanted to put to work these old World War veterans to do what she was doing. Whatever she was doing, I don't know. So last night I fell asleep watching Property Brothers. And of course, I woke up and they're doing this whole thing on HGTV. Anyway, one of the brothers got married and they did this whole series, Drew's Honeymoon Dream Home or something like that. And he bought this 1943 or 5 house. And even though they had to tear the whole thing down, which I think this is kind of key, they rebuilt it up. And it was important for him to maintain some of the architectural structures, but to put in their own personal flair. So I woke up, after sitting here for a little while and not just jumping up and running like I usually do. I thought that was interesting. So something told me to look up when World War II started, and it was 1939 to 1945, which I don't think that's a coincidence, but because if there's going to be destruction before there's any type of rebuilding. And I think World War III is, of course, there's going to be destruction, but it kind of makes me think about America and Babylon being destroyed in an hour, just like what Jeremiah 51. And so, anyway, in doing a little bit of research, it popped up the Cold War, which started taking place a couple years after World War II, and that started in 1947 to 1991, which would kind of make sense as far as using the same personnel or equipment or whatever. I only got in the dream personnel, basically people, but to use some of the Cold War equipment would kind of make sense also, especially if you're trying to make sure that things are operating. These same people know how to operate the same old Cold War equipment. And, but like I said, in the dream, I was kind of getting like World War II, but it also brings back to my memory that Russia had been using old Cold War equipment that is not affected by our modern technology, or they have been testing it or something. And it just kind of reminded me of that when I saw Cold War. And if you've been watching the news for any length or time this particular year, there's rhetoric about this being having the feel of Cold War. And I don't know, maybe I'll leave a link about the Wikipedia because it does kind of have that same feeling of the Cold War era. Allies and proxy wars and this and that. The U.S. The thing I found out about that was the U.S. tested like over 1,000 nuclear tests. Of course, Kim Jong Un is doing that, but then again, we have Donald Trump threatening North Korea with fire and fury like he's never seen before. Will that happen? I don't know. I'm just telling you about the dream. I'll come back later. I'm doing talk about 3 visions I've had since Thursday and some revelations that I've gotten. And hopefully, eventually, I'll get to that rapture dream. Okay?